Board of Directors adopt a resolution setting a public hearing on June 27th, 2025 to commence at 9 a.m. or as soon as possible thereafter so that the matter can be heard for the final adoption of the final fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27 operating budget and the fiscal year 26 capital budget presented today by Chuck Farmer, our Chief Financial Officer.
All right, thank you. All right, so I'm going to go over the budget more of a higher level and specifically focused on what has changed since what we presented in the month of March till now. So we're not going to go in depth, but please stop me if you have any other questions and you want to go in and dig into any areas. What you see on the board right now is FY26 budget as what we're going to present. That's in the box right there. I'll focus in on all the different changes and adjustments that we kind of went through. Biggest number on this page is look at the bottom. It's $7.6 million negative. That's the number that we're going to bridge all the different changes going forward. So this, I'm not going to go through because this was actually presented. These are all the changes we made from the 25 to the 26 budget in March. So we started at about $2.9 million positive and ultimately ended up at $8 million negative. And these are everything from revenue adjustments that we know because sales tax is going to be lower, as well as getting pay rate increases, COLA increases, and expenses going up and so on. Since then, we've gone from the $8 million down to 7.6. And the changes we made first, about $961,000. This is actually good. We've increased. Our Highway 17 and passenger ridership is up, so our revenue is up about $300,000. We are shifting $535,000 of LC top funding into our revenue to cover the free fares for the kids. And then lastly, we had Santa Cruz City. We have increased ridership, and that's per contract, so it's about $125,000. So we actually have some good news there is the revenue is up by $961,000. On the cost side, we have now updated our changes on our FTE and fringe. That's actually a savings of $1.8 million. So to give you an idea, we know that with the delay in the hydrogen buses and the tank and being able to really kind of put it in full service, we don't need 250 bus drivers now. We just need 280. So we're going to maintain 230, and then we're going to gear back up once we roll out in 27. So that's really the savings we see on that. Then there's some little puts and takes where we've updated security costs, some preventive maintenance contracts for buses. So this is like to outsource our PMs for some of the buses because we only have a Then our property liability, we always get those late, so that's been updated. So our new costs have gone up $258. And then we've kind of finally built out our fuel number. That gets us to about a $755,000 savings. Two parts of that. One, hydrogen is up, but we're not fully rolling out on hydrogen fuel costs in 26 until that tank is up and running. So that's not going to be until like May or June of next year when that tank's going. But we're still using it. We also were using a proxy in the month of March, assuming last year it was going to keep rolling forward, that the costs are going to be much higher. And actually, costs in fuel has actually kind of come down. And then lastly, at the very bottom, on our non-operating changes, this is where we move the LC top up. So you'll see the 535 is offset. The TIRSA grant has been reduced by the drawdowns. So the money doesn't go away. It's $2 million. We still have the money. It's just we can't pull the money out and subsidize because we actually submit bus driver salaries as well as fuel costs to get reimbursed. So if we pay a driver and we pay the fuel, then we get to go get the money. So in this case, we're down 20 heads because we're reducing our bus drivers. So we can't get reimbursed for nobody there. So effectively, our TIRSA grant, we can't draw it down. So, but the pot's still there. It's just gonna take longer. And then some, other little bit max. So ultimately, all the changes in total is about $500,000. So we're saving about $500,000 since what we presented in March. And then just visibly. Okay, so visibly, to kind of take a look at it from an operating standpoint, so this is like midway down the P&L. We started FY25 budget about 16.1 million. We've added our fares have gone up slightly about $1 million. Then it's offset by our fully loaded wages of 2.8. That's primarily 2 million and 2.8. It's just our benefit increases. They're up over 12% year over year. I mean, these costs of healthcare is just going up, skyrocketing. So that's a big piece. The other 800 is the net increase in salaries. And then revenue vehicle parts and repair. This is a one-time hit of 1.3. This is the cost really to staff up or actually fulfill our inventory for all hydrogen buses. So we have to buy all these parts for the hydrogen buses because we don't have them. We're going to put them in the way the agency works accounting wise. Usually some companies put it in inventory and then when they pull the part, that's when they expense it. We expense it as we receive it. So we're actually buying the parts and expensing it at the time, over $1 million worth of hydrogen parts. And that's all going in the inventory. So next year, we're just expensing as we go. We don't have to build up that inventory. Property and insurance, like I said, we got the update. So that's about 800,000. The line of credit, this is a discussion we had in the prior board meeting, is the fact that we want to have a line of credit so we can bridge the funding on the hydrogen buses, because we don't get the VW grant until we actually destroy or take a bus out of service and destroy it next year. So effectively, that's about 1.1 estimate. We don't know. If we draw it, then it could be 1.1. If we don't really draw on it, then it may be nothing. But we're taking on worst case scenario, it's about 1.1. And a little bit left, and that gets us to 65. And then on the non-operating, which is down below, we had $63 million in the budget, dropping to 57.7. Our sales tax in Measure D, we are taking very conservative 4% year over year decrease in our sales taxes. I know that the city is going up about 0.5%, but right now, as you can see with the tariffs and people pulling back, plus we're seeing trending that it's going down. We feel like this is a better conservative approach that year over year we're going to come in. We're scaling back. So the 4% year over year is budget to budget. In 25, we're actually below our budget already by 700, I think 700 or $800,000 year to date. So effectively, we're really dropping about 2 million off the run rate, or about 2% off the run rate. I think that's good. It's conservative and so forth. Our federal and state grants, 2.7 million. That's lower. Primarily, that has to do with timing as to when we get this. Again, it goes back to what I showed in the TERSA grant, but we also have it on 5307. We can only draw down exactly what we use on bus drivers and fueling to go get reimbursed. So don't think that goes away. They still have the money. It's just a timing issue. And then pension and bond, that's about 700. That's part of that is money associated with underperformance by CalPERS on our pension fund. Investments haven't been coming in 6.8. If it comes in at 6.2, we have to make up the difference. So that's what you're seeing. And then retiree obligations. As more people retire, that's expected to go up. And people are living longer, retiring younger. That number plus, like I said, retiree obligations is like health insurance. So health insurance going up 12%, that's going to go up too. So that gets us there. Funding wise, source, the bulk of our funding right now is sales tax Measure D, 39% that comes in. So if we can turn that sales tax around even flat, that will really help us out a lot. Right now, like I said, we're conservative budget to budget, 4% down. We have 11.6 TIRSA funding, so that's one-time funding, so that covers us for Metro Reimagine. And so at some point, that's going to disappear. Our passenger fares, which make up about 12.6% of the funding. On the headcount, I'm not going to particularly go over each of these line items, but at the very bottom it says year-over-year increase. From 23 to 24, we increased 112 heads. That's all focused on Metro Reimagine. So that was the gearing up all the bus drivers and so forth. Since then, we've learned that, like I said, we're not going to be rolling it out, so we had to scale back the bus drivers. So net in 25, we're down 8. And then it comes back in 27, as you can see, the 20, that's where we're adding back the bus drivers. And really, here's the changes. As you can see, we go from 443 to 435. That's 8 down. 20 of that is the bus drivers coming away. And then what we had to do, and we didn't do the first time around, is we needed to really focus on kind of the support of those bus drivers. So that'd be like mechanics, transit soups. So we had to add those in. So that's really making up the difference. That's why it's not full 20 down, it's coming back. And we had to add in 4 transit supervisors, 3 mechanics, a dispatch scheduler, a lead mechanic, and a fleet maintenance supervisor. So they should have been in the original focus. So now they're back in.
Is that one-time money that these are being paid out of these actual individuals? This is
So anything that's associated with Metro Reimagine, the focus would be one-time money, but we can't reimburse these people funding-wise using one-time money.
So what would have happened? Who would have started paying for those positions after Metro Reimagine went away?
But there's a bigger discussion. Metro Reimagine goes away. You don't need all these mechanics, supervisors, but you can't run fleet at that point.
So you'd have laid them off. We'd have to lay them off.
Attention. And then FY27 operating budgets. The operating budget here, there really wasn't much change other than moving the headcount from 230 bus drivers to 250. I'm not going to go through all the line items on here. If you have any questions on 27, you can let me know. But pretty much the premise is everything stays kind of the same, 26 to 27, other than, like I said, more headcount for the bus drivers. And the operating risks for 26, this is, passenger fares, transit fares. It's only 12 point something %. So, a few people here and there is not going to make a difference. But if we have a dramatic difference in, people not riding the bus or a whole slew of people coming in to make changes, special transit fares, changes in contracts. Rio looks like it's in great shape. We're finalizing UCSC. So it sounds like a lot of our contracts are going to be good. Again, this is 27. We don't know. Sales tax, TDA, LTF. So again, sales tax seems to be a hot topic. And even the state focus right now or forecast is actually down. So it's not like we're receiving money there. So that's even another kind of negative against us. Then we have the FTA 5307 stick. We don't know what's going to happen in the federal government at this point. But like I said, that's another issue. And then one of the things, RTC and delegation, this is like the SGR and STA. So right now, what we used to get obligated is actually been held now being held back by the RTC. There's 2 parts. One is the numbers are down, and the second part is RTC is holding back money. We are not forecasting in our budget that we will get money back. We will, some of it. We just don't know right now. But if we do, that's great. That's an upside. But at this point right now, we don't. Economic downturn from if we have recession. One thing we didn't put in here was like the tariffs, what's happening in the government and what's going to happen to us. Natural disasters. On the expense side, bus engine, mechanical failures, fuel cost volatility, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go through each one, but you get the idea that there's a lot of external factors that could play in that we have no impact on, but we are impacted by what happens. On the capital side, our total portfolio is $123.3 million. To give you an idea, that 123 includes projects we have today, we're spending today in 25, but it also includes what we're going to spend on that project in 26 and possibly in the 27. Some are siloed within the year, but it's about the whole project cost. So it's 123.3, of which we're going to spend about $51 million in FY26. That number may change slightly because we are right now delivering hydrogen buses and they're putting material and costs. So it's basically it was a $1.2 million that we're spending for every bus that comes in. We've been accepting about 2 a week. And if we continue down that same path, I think some of that spending will actually cross into July from June. So the number will actually go up in 26 and come down in 25, but it's still the same. So to kind of get more into details on this, as you can see, the big line, if you look at construction projects, 8.1 million, 25 is what we're spending, another almost 19 million in 26, and another 18 million in 27. Our total portfolio of projects is 45, but we're going to spend 19 million in FY26 on those projects. The biggest piece right there is the fueling station. This is the permanent fueler of almost $12 million. Right now, we have the temporary fueler, which I think everybody has seen and drove by. If you look over there, you can see it's almost done. So some of that cost, the 1.8, may actually get pulled back into this year. It all depends on timing and permits and so forth of that nature. So that's still TBD. On the IT projects, we're finalized. I think we're almost done with the Workday ERP. So we came in drastically under budget. So that may just go away too. We're finalizing kind of the last little pieces. This is always hard, especially timing being that capital projects roll continually regardless of fiscal year. So it's going to bridge budget timelines. So that's why we're showing you the whole portfolio. So you can see that's really the number we're working. And then down at the bottom, the other big numbers to look at is the 44 hydrogen buses. We're expecting to spend 42.8 million this year and about 9.5 next year. I think the 42 is going to come down and the 9 is going to go up, but it's still the same number of 52.3 million. And then the 60-foot hydrogen, this is definitely a next year. That gets us. Okay, here we go. So bottom line, $54 million spent this year. 50.9 million is going to spend next year, another 18, and that gets us to the 123.3 million. And then how is that all being paid? So right now, almost 40% is being paid by Turson. That's a pretty good amount of money. I mean, because they're spread across not only our buses, but also our fuelers and workplace development and so forth, so that we get this going. Another piece is, FTA grants of 20.7. I think we're pretty good on that piece. Our VW grant, almost 12%. That is the grant where we're going to receive the money after we take buses out of service, destroy them, and then we'll get the cash. That's the reason why we have the line of credit that we need. But the bigger item I want to focus on right now is really the operating capital reserve. This is 21.3%. This is money that we set aside for bus replacement fund, $3 million. We've built it up. And we're also doing a lot of the matching with that to buy our buses, which is actually good. But we're also spending money elsewhere. So that's our money that we're spending. And we're hoping that it doesn't go up from there, that we don't get grants taken away or so forth that nature, because I really keep my eye on the ball, make sure that wherever we have the funding is locked in. It's not going to change. And if anything, I know with Derek's help, this is a little weird. I know he's been looking for money to bring that $21.3 million down. So it's our money goes back in our pockets, and we have grants to cover it. And I know he's spinning wheels trying to get whatever we need. And just some additional information. This is, typical. We send this out each year. These are board authorized, public support activities. We've kind of listed it here. Go through these, continued here. And like I said, even though we're listing it here, doesn't mean that this is it and this is only this. This is just one stab at it. And as things go up through the year, you'll get a whole bunch of news about, hey, we got another activity. I think Danielle sends out stuff almost monthly. Oh, we got this activity that just came up that we're employee appreciation events. So these are the holiday parties, Rodeo, which is coming up, transit worker events. And then we list out all our membership dues, starting with ATTA, which is the big one. CTA, CalAct, I think most of you all heard of this. And it goes on, 2 full pages. So we're really out there. And then board travel. So this is, we've shown this. These are the different APTA conferences as well as the CTA conferences. And it also talks about having a board member possibly joining Corey to one of these events. And then employee incentives, new hire kids, employee appreciation events, awards for drivers and so forth, as well as bus rodeo. And then that's it. I know I kind of took it at high level, but if anybody has any detailed questions.
A few questions. Sure. So when you were talking about the capital programs, the capital projects, a lot of those are out of grant money though, right? So that a lot of that money can't be spent on anything else. So I think we have to really remember that, like, it's not like we can put that money into the general fund and pay for, people's health insurance. It's
You can't take.
It's specific for those projects.
Yeah, you can't take something that's sitting there that's, a grant for this, that's specific for this and say, I'm going to cancel that project and move the money back out.
And I understand how it works. I just want to be clear for the public and for other people, because sometimes when you're saying this, it sounds like, oh, we're using it. It may seem to the public we're using funding to, do all these projects when in fact it's grant money that's specific for those projects. And we can't use that money for bus drivers or for employees or for other costs. So I just wanted to be very clear that, even if we're hitting, a low point, that money has to be used for capital projects it's specific for that.
Yeah.
So, and then, I brought up the one-time I managed already. I see that the ridership for 17 has increased. It sounds like it brought in $300,000. To me, that's you kind of see where it works, right? Where the system is working. What's the runtime on 17 that we go? Is it every 15, 30?
These are 15. I don't know, Corey, you might have better interesting.
No, it's every 30.
I mean, I think that like we should be taking advantage of where we see we can be gaining, funds. And that seemed to be, $300,000 last year seemed to be an area where we were in the positive. Because people are going to be wanting raises this year. We're going to have to start thinking how we're going to be able to make some money. And that seemed like, if we were able to make some money there. And I don't know, have we been thinking about that or like the future of?
There's a lot going on about the future of where we're going and how to get there and the best path and alternatives. Future funding and how to pay for things. Yes.
I just think that we should see our successful routes and make sure that we're taking full advantage of them because, we're going to be looking like the bad guys, if we're not able to provide what people are asking for financially. And then, that's it for right now. Thank you.
Do we have any other board questions or comment?
I have some questions. Thanks again for the presentation and information. It's clear and helpful. Just that one maybe smaller point, reduction of bus drivers from 250 to 230. I thought I'd understood from previous meetings that this service was gonna start ramping up in the fall as new buses came online and the temporary facility came online. How are we gonna increase service if we're reducing bus drivers by 20?
Well, that's the number that we need with the increased service on them. So the increased service is the max we're gonna be able to do. We won't be able to do the full reimagine because of maintenance constraints. So we don't have enough maintenance bays to be able to service that many miles. So we're gonna put as much as we can.
And we're assuming in 27, we're gonna hire back up to 250. Are we gonna have more maintenance bays at that time?
That's what we're working on for South Canyon.
And then I guess in the big picture, $7.6 million shortfall next year, 15.3 million. Those are pretty big numbers. $60-70 million budget. You talked about on the capital side how we're using reserves to balance the capital budget. When this came to us a couple months ago, there was the discussion about reserves, but it's not clear, like, how are we managing a $7 and then $15 million loss in the next 2 years? If we're drawing
So-
down reserves?
No, well, no, because we have a COVID recovery bucket. At this point right now with the 7.6, as you noticed, the TURSA grant, that's really just timing. So we don't lose that money. We have 5307 money too as well. We actually have 24 and 25 still to draw in. So we still have that funding as well. We're kind of going. And then on the capital side, the operating capital reserve is primarily the bulk of that is reserve bucket that we put 3 million aside every year.
Yeah, no, that one makes sense. I guess
But there are some things that we need to do in order to manage. And yes, there is a drawdown. And that's primarily why we have this focus of next decision. You know, the logistics of this agency is the fact that we run buses. And when we run buses and you only receive 12% of your revenue to run a bus that comes in, you know, ultimately that's a lot of cost. And you got to cover the costs. And we can cover it by sales tax, we can cover it by state taxes or state funding, some way, shape, or form. But ultimately, we have a lot of costs, and those costs go up, whether it's inflation or COLAs or whatever. So we need to really take a hard look at it. The biggest swing here is revenue, if sales tax revenue starts to go up, and I'm forecasting down, that's a boon for us because just that amount of movement, just to go from 4% to 0, is enough to change that 7.6 down to almost 0. So it's that much of a swing that sales tax has that can make this plus or minus. And same with state grants, you know, they make it not as much, but that will actually make fluctuations. So showing you very, very conservative rough case for 26 and 27, then we feel like our opportunity here is to actually come in better than what our numbers are, than worse than our numbers. Because we can manage to these, and we are making and having discussions around what does the future look like pre and post sales tax initiative, as well as how we can cover our costs here. And yes, we do hit our reserves that we have to cover any gaps that we have in the very bottom. Yes, there are gaps, and we will see the gaps in June. And we'll talk about the reserve buckets then too.
so. When the board votes on the final budget, it will show how it gets the balance between the operating.
And where the money's deficit and all of that.
I think that'd be important, and I think it could be conservative, but board would have to see, I assume, a balanced budget. And if it's being balanced by reserves. And in terms of a ballot measure, the timing of that, if it were to get on the ballot 26 and pass in 26, the revenues would be starting to be collected, I assume, in 2027. So they wouldn't, would they impact the fiscal 27 budget?
Yeah.
It would.
Yeah, I mean, the way we're kind of looking at it, because we'll show you the 5-year plan as part of it. And that will show you the sales tax. And if it does come in, you'll start to see probably a quarter of our fiscal year. So think of it as the second quarter of the calendar year, which is our fiscal 27. You'll see an impact then and then carry it through.
Okay. And I guess just the last comment I would make, when you went through at the end, public support activities and appreciation activities, dues and memberships, travel, these are the kinds of things, and there's some hiring of administrative positions that with a fairly unbalanced budget, I don't know, I guess other organizations that I've been a part of, including the current one, these are the things that we start tightening up on and slowing down, getting rid of. And if you add this all up, it's you're not all costed. It looks like it could be $500,000. If you have an operating shortfall of $7 to $15 million, it might be prudent to rethink these kind of business as usual activities, given pretty sizable.
Just a comment about what Director Dutro raised. I mean, of course, the challenge of, and I agree, it's great to see additional funds coming from the Highway 17 bus, but the challenge is if we're only making 12.5%, and maybe it's different by route, but as far as fare box recovery, it's not like we can add buses and make more money, right? We could add service and lose money still, even if it's a popular route that are performing better than others, just because of our business model.
Do you have any more comments or questions from the board? Do we have any questions or comments from the public? No. And none online? None online. Okay, so a motion is required to approve this resolution. Move approval. Second. We'll do the roll call.
Director Downey,
Aye.
Director Dutra,
Aye.
Director Colin Terry Johnson,
Aye.
Director Koenig,
Aye.
Director Leonore,
Aye.
Director Lynn,
Aye.
Director Orbach,
Aye.
Director Key Carter,
Aye.
and Director Rockenfeller.
And it passes.